Hey folks, welcome to Damon's Baritone Uke Joint, where we will be talking about all things baritone ukulele. Now this is going to be a lesson for beginners, but let's face it, we all skip a few things inadvertently, or we forget a few things along the way as we get into playing songs and having fun. So this is really for everybody because it could be a review of some of the things you may have forgotten or may have never learned to start with, some of the basics. So let's start with the names of the strings. So the biggest string is the D, the next string is the G, the next string is the B, and the next string is the E. Let's talk about some of the key things on the instrument. Okay, first you're going to have to get a tuner, or we could also discuss kind of how to tune if you didn't have a tuner handy. So when you get used to the instrument a little bit, you'll get used to like the tension of a string. So if you didn't have a tuner handy, you could kind of get it where you feel like the biggest string is of the right tension. It's not too loose, it's not too tight, and you're going to be good to go. You know, that's also figuring you've played the instrument in tune a little bit. So if you're totally not sure, you're going for not real tight, but definitely not loose to get a roundabout pitch that you'd need. So, but if you don't have a tuner, the way to tune is if you're figuring that the big string is in tune, the 5th fret is supposed to be the same note as the open string underneath it. So the biggest string when I play on the 5th fret should sound like the string just underneath that open. The next string is the 4th fret instead of the 5th. Should sound the same as the open string below it. So it's 5th one on the big one, should be the open on the 3rd string. And we're going to call these strings 1 is the smallest one, 2 is the second one, 3 and 4. So the 4th string is the biggest string. So when you're tuning, you got 5th fret on the 4th string should sound like the 3rd string open. And the 4th fret on the 3rd string should sound like the 2nd string open. And the 5th, we're going to go back to the 5th fret for this last one. The 5th fret on the 2nd string, the B string, should sound like the open 1st string, the E string. Okay, so once again. And what happens when you're tuning, if you're out of tune and you're not sure, say I'll be playing that first note. Say this other string is like wildly out of tune. Well, you can kind of reach over playing them together and slowly move that tuning peg until they sound like the same note. So that sounds pretty good right there. Let's check this other one out. Say that one. What I like to do also is if I'm not too sure, let's say they're around the same note, but maybe not. I like to take that one that I'm tuning, which is the 2nd string in this case, and make it way too flat, way too loose. So you can tell there it's way too loose. Then you can slowly tighten that to bring that into pitch. If you go too far, you got to just start over again and go low again. So say right here, maybe I'm like, oh, I think it went too far. I'm just going to take it low. Bring it back up. Okay, now obviously the next step is buy yourself a tuner. I recommend those little Snark tuners. They're about 15 to 30 bucks depending on what model you get. That'll make it a lot easier. But you know, of course, you're out, you're camping or something, you don't have one of those tuners, you forgot your tuner, your battery dies, that's how you get tuned. Now if you're playing with other instruments, of course, you're going to have to find some kind of middle ground. You're having to tune to somebody else's string and then try to tune the rest of your strings to themselves. Okay, so let's start looking at notes, making notes. So what you want to do when you're making a note, the frets on a baritone ukulele aren't too wide, so it's not like you have all kind of places to go wrong in there, but what your basic rule is you want to place your finger near that fret on each one. Say if I was going 1, 2, 3, 4, that's a little chromatic exercise we're going to talk about here in a sec. So I would want to put my finger near that fret, not on top of it, but next to it, very close to it, because if you go too far back, you're going to get a buzz. So you want to get these fingers in these good spots like that. So let's do that little chromatic exercise. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 on each string. Okay, so here's 1, 2, 3, 4. And yeah, I'm using my fingers right now. We'll talk about a pick here in a second. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, at your own pace, you know. And then we can go backwards, 4, 3, 2, 1. One of the things you want to do, let's look at the pick thing. Okay, so how you hold a pick, if you don't want to use your fingers, you want to get into a pick, that's kind of the next level of stuff, especially for strumming and things. I think how I hold a pick is basically like it's extending straight out from, basically straight out from my first finger, like that, and then I kind of put my thumb across. So basically you just want, everybody's a little different in how they hold the pick and how they like to finger things and whatever, you know, it's everybody's different. So you'll find your own way of doing it. Some people don't use a pick ever, you know, like Mark Knopfler, Dire Straits, doesn't even use a pick ever. You know, Sultans of Swing, all that without a pick. But with a pick, I like using a pick, and I feel like it kind of semi-extends straight out from my first finger, and my thumb kind of goes across. But basically, you just want that, the part that's sticking out, the pointy part, you want that to be going across your strings, because that's going to reach the farthest, and that's going to, you know, make good sounds for you. But anyway, let's look at picking a little bit. So with picking, you want to play around the sound hole. Sometimes people on these ukuleles will kind of finger pick stuff more up in here on the neck to get a different sound. But you get kind of different sounds, like you get a really bright sound down there, you get a more warm tone here, and then it gets a little different, you know, as the further you go up the neck. So, you know, you could use a variety of places and stuff. But anyway, think about picking. If we're going to do this 1, 2, 3, 4, I would have you take it one step further and go down, up, down, up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, down, up, down, up. That makes it a nice picking exercise to get you ready for, you know, little phrases and things you'll play in songs. We're going to go backwards. Okay, so that's chromatic exercise number 1. There will be more of those coming later, but that's a good one to get you started. You can always warm up with that, you know. Now, another thing we're going to talk about, since the biggest string is a D, we're going to talk about the D major scale. Okay, so the D major scale is going to be the big string, open, and then 2, and then 4. And that's going to be 2 with your first finger and 4 with your ring finger. And a lot of times we'll have like where each finger has its own fret. And that's how you work even in different areas of the neck. You kind of designate a finger to a fret, basically. And then you can always change for certain phrases when you want to and stuff. So anyway, here goes the D major scale. O, 2, 4, and then O, 2, 4 again. And then we're going to go 2, 3. That got us all the way from D back to D. So that was D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So let's take that backwards. 3, 2, and then 4, 2, O, and then 4, 2, O again. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, now we could take that up a little bit higher and include some higher notes in there. So we do that this time. So this is gonna be the D major scale all the way up to the 5th fret down here on the small string. What was that one called again? O2 4, O2 4, and then 2 3 5 this time. Pinky on the 5. 2 3 5 again. So let's talk about one more scale. This is the blues scale. We're going to start this one on the E note right here, the 2nd fret of the D string. 2, and then open 2, open 3, open 3. See, I put the little down up picking in there. I went down on that 2, then up on the next one, which is getting a little tricky. Don't worry too much about that. But down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And then when I go back, still doing down ups. And then I could add this little open on that one back to this one. So would be the blues scale for E. That's the E minor pentatonic scale. Okay, so I'm going to add one note to that just for you guys who want to get a little bit more bluesy. There's a couple extra notes we can add to make it a little bit more bluesy and fancy sounding. So we're going to go 2 again, 2 open, and then 2, 3. That's the flat fifth. That's the extra bluesy note. And then we got our 03, 03. 3, 2, 0, 2, 0, 2. Now there's one more trick for this scale before we move to chords. We're going to do all the basic chords next, and that's going to kind of wrap up this first lesson. This is going to be combining these first 2 positions of the E minor pentatonic blues scale. So we're going to go 2, open. We're going to let the 3 go this time. We're going to skip that for now. We got 2, and then open on the G string, the 3rd string. 2, 0, 2. Then we're going to take that finger and slide it up to the 4th. And then we're going to go 3, 5, 3, 5. And we can take that to 7. Now we have a whole bunch of notes for our blues scale. And I suggest going back the same way so you don't lose your place. Take that ring finger, slide it down to the 5, just like you slid it up. Now we can do one more thing with that. We can add that 3 in there, and we can add another high note to that on the top of that scale. So we can go 2, 0, 2, 3, 4, 3, 5, 3, 5, 6, 7. That was a repeat of that other flat fifth note. So one more time. 2, 0, 2, 3, 4, 3, 5, 3, 5, 6, 7. And then we go back with 7, 6, 5, 3, 5, 3, 4, 3, 2, 0, 2, 0, 2. Okay, so here are the basic 8 open chords that you need to know first. First, we're going to talk about, let's do E. So E is going to be 2 on the big one, and 1 on the next one, the 3rd string, the G string. 2, 1, and then open, open. So that's an E major chord. Now, if we take that first finger out of there, 2, open, 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 that's an E minor chord. Now, let's look at this. If we put 3 2s there, and I'm going to use these, and I'm going to use the 3 fingers including the pinky instead of these other 3, because these are bigger compared to these, and these can cram in that space a little easier. So we're doing the biggest 3 strings with the 2s, and then we have an open on the bottom. That's an A major. Now, if we take the pinky out of there, and we come over here and use the 1st fret of the 2nd string, 2, 2, 1, open. That's an A minor. So let's go through those 4 chords again. That's half of the 8 we got through already. So E is 2, 1, open, open. E minor is 2, open, open, open. And then A major is 2, 2, 2, open. A minor is 2, 2, 1, open. Let's talk about G now. G is going to be all the big 3 are open, and the bottom one's on the 3rd. You can use whatever kind of finger you like, depending on what other things are happening in the song. Then we're going to have a C is going to be 2, open, 1, open. So G to C. And then we have 2 Ds. We have D major and D minor. So D major is open on the big one, then 2, then 3, and I've got that ring finger there on the 2nd string. Remember, the bottom one is, the little one is the 1st string. So the 1st string I have the 2, just like I had here. Sometimes you might even start that chord with those 2 on the same one, and then you just know the other one goes in between them. So open 2, 3, 2. That's a D major chord. And then a D minor chord would be, I got to flip this finger over here. I'm going to have now, I'm on the 3rd string with the 2nd finger on the 2nd fret. Then I go to the 3rd fret on the 2nd string and the 1st fret on this little string, the 1st string. So open 2, 3, 1. That's your D minor. So let's look at those last 4 chords again. We got G, open, 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 3. We got C, 2, 0, 1, open. Then we got D, open, 2, 3, 2. And D minor, open, 2, 3, 1. So what I suggest is take one of those chords and do a nice, like 4 strums. Think about, there's like 4 beats in a normal measure, the most common types of measures. And so to fill that space, it'd be 4 strums, and then you'd be on to the next measure, and maybe the next chord change, So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go to E minor now. And then let's go to our A. Then A minor. And then G. And then C. And then D. And then D minor. So what you might do to get practice for how songs would really be practically, chords practically applied into songs, would be maybe you pick like a G and you do that 4 times and you go to C and you keep going back and forth between those two. Now we could spice up that strumming thing a little bit just by putting an upstroke. So if that was 1, 2, 3, 4, what we're going to do now is we're going to go 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. So we're going to do a down up on the second beat and a down up on the fourth beat. So it'd be like 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. So that spiced it up a little bit already. Go to the C, 1, 2, and 3. 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and. And so I'm going to include in the tabs for this a bunch of different sample progressions. But what you should do on your own is pick 2 chords I didn't use in the tab, and maybe do 3 chords or 4 chords. Maybe have a 4-chord sequence where you do each one like 4 beats and you keep repeating that as a sequence. And that's how people put songs together. You got your basic chords, you put them in the orders that you think sound good, and you just wrote your own song. Okay, so I hope you all enjoyed that. Once again, I'm Damon Wood. This is Damon's Baritone Uke Joint. This is our first lesson out of the gate. So please like and subscribe and share and tell your friends to play baritone ukulele. And if you have any requests or any questions or any comments, please let us know. Leave them in the comments section, and we will see you soon. We'll see you with more exercises, more scales, more chords, and start getting into songs probably a little bit on this second lesson. So thanks a lot. I'm Damon. Have a great day. Hey folks, here's beginner baritone ukulele lesson number 2. Okay, so last time we talked about tuning if you didn't have a tuner. One thing to know about tuning with a tuner, it's very helpful. Of course, you're trying to get it in the middle of whatever the gauge is that they have. So if you're to the left, you need to tighten the string, and if you're too far to the right, you have to loosen the string, and you have to make sure that you're on the right note for your string. So once again, it's D, G, B, Daddy got big ears, or however you want to remember it. But say if I was going for a D and the tuner was too far to the right, how you're looking at it, if it's too far that way, then you're sharp. That means you need to come down and then come back up. It's best to go too low and then tune up to the pitch than to be past the pitch too high and then come down. Because when you loosen a tuning peg, you loosen that thing, it's still loose, and so as soon as you start playing that string, that note is just going to get flatter, than it should be. So by making a tuning up into pitch, a tightening motion on a tuning peg, you're going to lock that string in. It's going to stay in tune a lot better. Then we're going to talk about the notes up the neck. We talked about how to play notes, how to get your finger in the right position in each fret, which is near the fret, not on top of it, but very near it, not too far back. But now we're going to talk about the notes, how to find notes on the instrument. So basically you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G is the musical alphabet. Now between B and C and between E and F, there's only 1 fret. All the other notes are 2 frets away from each other. So we've got D. D to E is going to be 2 frets. And then E to F, because it's one of those exceptions, is only 1 fret. So D, E, F. F to G is 2 frets. G to A is 2 frets. A to B is 2 frets. But B to C is one of those exceptions, so it's only 1 fret. Then we go 2 more frets, we get to the D. That's the 12th fret, so the open is the same as the 12th fret on each string. That's where we get all the way through all the notes and we get to what they call the octave, the higher note of the same note you started with. Okay, so once again, that was D, E, F. Now let's name some of those notes in between. So if we go from D to E, what about this note we skipped here, right? That's a D sharp because it's higher than D. It could also be called the E flat because it's lower than E. So D, D sharp or E flat, E, F. We know it's F to G is 2 frets. So we're going to name this one in between. It's a little higher than F, so we're going to call it F sharp. We could also call it G flat because it's lower than G. So here's the G, then we have a G sharp or an A flat up to the A. A sharp, or B flat up to the B. And then remember, B to C is only 1, so that's the C. C sharp or D flat to the D. So that's how you find notes all up and down the neck. If you want to try another string, say we got the B. B is open. What's C going to be? Well, that's first fret because B to C is one of those exceptions. B to C and E to F. That's what you really got to remember. Your musical alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But B to C, E to F. Those are the ones to remember because they're only 1 fret apart. Those are the ones that don't have a black key between them on a piano. Let's talk about some finger picking. Finger picking, basically, say we get a little D chord going here. Now, one way to do finger picking is that each finger, a lot of times you'll have it where each finger has its own string. That way you can do, everything has its own kind of job to do. But sometimes you might just practice something like using each finger one at a time, go up and down. And plenty of songs have that same sound. Let's say I'll go to an E major here. So with all your different chords, it's really good to practice that kind of finger picking. Just one at a time, trying to get it real smooth and even. Maybe just use 2 chords like that. Then there's other fancier picking where you might start, this happens in a lot of songs, this is like a Travis picking thing, where you'd use the big one and the little one. See, I've got this 3rd finger down here in the smallest string because each one has its own, right? So I got thumbs on the big one, 1st finger's on the 3rd string, my middle finger's on the 2nd string, my ring finger's on the 1st string. So a lot of songs have that type of thing. So that'd be the big one and the little one at the same time. And then my 1st finger string, which is the 3rd string, down to the 2nd finger string, which is the 2nd string. And then I go like big one, little one, back to that 1st finger. So it's like 1 and 4 at the same time. And then thumb and ring finger, I should say. And then 1st finger, 2nd finger, and then thumb, ring, 1st. This would be like a Pink Floyd Brain Damage kind of example. So that's a very common, very helpful finger picking approach that you might think about practicing and do with different chords and stuff. Okay, another thing, we did the D major scale last time. 0, 2, 4, 0, 2, 4, 2, 3, and then we could go 5, 2, 3, 5 to keep it going. Well, now we're gonna do the D minor scale. 0, 2, 3, 0, 2, 3, 1, 3, 0, 1, 3. So what are those notes there? We got D, E, F, G, A, B flat in this case. And the reason they use sharps or flats is because you don't want to repeat the same letter name twice in a scale. So if we have D, E, F, G, A, we've already used the A, so we can't call this next note A sharp. So we're going to call it B flat. That's how that works. So D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C, because remember that's the B string and B to C is only 1. So C and then D and then E, F, G. So there's only 1 flat in that scale. And that's the B flat right there. Okay, so that's the D minor scale. 0, 2, 3, 0, 2, 3, 1, 3. No open on that string. And then open 1, 3 on the last one. Okay, then I wanted to show you guys some more chords. We talked about all the main chords. D, D minor, 2, 3, 1 there. A. We talking about A minor, so A is 2-2-2 open, A minor is 2-2-1 open. Then we've got E, 2-1 open open, E minor is 2 open open open. And then we've got C, which is 2-0-1-0, and we got G, which is open 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 and 3 on the bottom. So let's talk about the dominant 7 blues chords. So we have an E here, but let's put a 3 here on the second string. So we have 2-1-3 open. There's your bluesy E7 chord. Now A7 is 2 open, 2 open, or 2 open, 2, 3. If you want to get a little spicy with that. Now D7 is open, 2, 1, 2. C7 is 2, 3, 1, 0. And G7 is 0-0-0-1. Now we also have a B7 is 1, 2, open 2. So let's go through this again. We got E7, 2, 1, 3 open. A7, 2-0-2 open, or 2-0-2, 3. Then we've got D7, 0-2, 1, 2. We got G7, 0-0-0-1. C7, 2, 3, 1, 0. B7, 1, 2, 0, 2. Okay, so that's your dominant 7 blues chords. So let's do a little blues progression, and we'll talk about the pentatonic minor blues scale again, and I'll show you how to play a little simple blues. So the first chord we're going to use E7. The 3 chords we're going to have in this is E7, which is 2, 1, 3, 0. A7, 2, 0, 2, 0. We'll just keep it simple. And then the B7, 1, 2, 0, 2. So a simple 8-bar blues would be 1, 2, 3 on that first chord to the A7, and then back to the E7, back to the A7. So that's 4 bars so far. Now we have our turnaround, our B7 to A7, E7, back to that B7. So we can also number those chords. The first one, E, is the 1 chord. We go to the A, that's the 4 chord. Now the turnaround chord, you can really tell it's turning itself around at that point. That's the 5 chord. So being able to understand the sounds of those 3 chords is very crucial to like playing the blues chords. So let's do it again. It's going to be 1, 4, 1, 4, and then 5, 4, 1, 5. So we go to the turnaround chord at the very end also. So 1 chord is the E7. 4 chord is the A7, back to the 1 chord, 4 chord. Now we have our turnaround 5 chord, 4 chord, the A7, and then back to the 1 chord, and then back to our turnaround chord, the B7. Okay, so that is a simple 8-bar blues in the key of E. Now your scale that would be really good to have fun improvising with, the little blues scale, the pentatonic minor, is 2. That's your E. You could also play the open on that string though, but that is your root note, the E. That's going to be your home bass note basically. So 2, open, 2 on the next one, open 3, open 3. So you could mess around with all those notes as I play this progression. I'll play this progression again now and see if you can't use some of these notes in here. And all you have to do is not just go up and down and you're improvising. You're playing the blues. Think about a little vibrato. Think about, there's little things like we can slide up into that 4th fret. That's a good blues kind of a phrase. So let's think about these notes up in here and do a little bit of jam in there. I'll play some chords behind you. Now if you want to slide up here, you can also go to the 3-5, 3-5. You could also slide that up into the 7. Now when you get up in there, you could get lost. So I suggest coming back the same way with that same finger to get you back where you were. Okay, so why don't you guys try some of those notes. Let's try it again. more time. And then we'll end on that first chord. Alright, so pentatonic minor scale, you can slide it up here. We could also add a couple fun notes, the flat fifth they call it. That note there, get real bluesy. So that note is kind of played kind of quickly to move between the other notes. You don't hold that one out too long. Unless you really want some dissonance, unless you really want some kind of out there kind of sounds, which can be really cool sometimes too. So once again, now if we want to move this up with that note, we could also come up here, do that 6 in there. 7, 6, 5, 3, 5, 3, 4, 3, 2, open, 2, open, 2. Okay, so that's a bit of how to play the blues. Now let's talk about some other chords. So let's take a look at this D here. So there's other things we can do with that D, like we use this pinky down here. That's called a suspended chord. That's a suspended fourth right there. The reason it's the fourth is because D, E, F sharp, G. It's the fourth note of the D scale added to the chord. Now if we had this one here, 0, 2, 3, open. So I'm not playing anything on that bottom string there. So instead of having the 2 here, I took it out. Now that's a suspended second because that is the D to E. That open is the E note. So that's the second note of the scale of D. So if you play that one, that's a D sus 2. So here's a D, here's a D sus 2, here's a D, here's a D sus 4. So think of Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. So you can make a lot of movement happen with the same chord by using these other notes, and they all have different chord names depending on what note it is at the time. So let's take a look at D. Now let's look at a different D. D major 7 is 2, 2, 2 with that open bass, and then we had our D dominant 7. So some songs even go like Something by George Harrison has that same kind of maneuver. Not with a D, different chord, but. So there's a lot of different chords that can happen within one chord. Like say here's A is 2, 2, 2 open. Well, if we were to go 2, 2, 1 open, of course that gives us the minor. But if we were to go 2, and we know about the 2, 0, 2, 0, that's the dominant 7. But if we go 2, 1, 2, 0, then we have the A major 7. So lots of different chords we can do here. Like, let's see, we got our E, E minor, E7, but we could also do E major 7, 2, 4, 4, 4. We could also do an E dominant 7 like this, 2, 4, 3, 4. Okay, so hope you all enjoyed that. That's been beginner lesson number 2 for baritone ukulele. I'm Damon. This is Damon's baritone uke joint, and thanks a lot. Please like and subscribe. Appreciate you. See you soon.